Whoever wins tonight will go on to face Republican Congressman Mike Rogers in November. Despite how divisive the primary has become, both candidates say they will attend the state's Democratic Party rally scheduled for this Friday, no matter who wins the nomination. Let's go live now to Detroit and bring in MS Now senior Capitol Hill reporter and the host of Way Too Early, Ali Vitale. And also with us this morning, contributing writer to The Atlantic, Eugene Robinson. Good morning to you both. Ali, let's start with you on the ground there. Set the scene for us a little bit as polls are set to open shortly here.
Hey, Willie, brisk Michigan morning out here as poll workers are setting up behind me at just one of many polling places across Michigan. And you're right to point out the contours of this race and the reason that we are looking at it so closely, not just as a litmus test in a must-win race here in Michigan for Democrats, especially if they hope to keep the seat that they currently hold by Senator Gary Peters and have any chance of taking back the Senate. But this race also, when you think about it from an intra-party perspective, the Democratic primary itself, it's going to teach us a lot about where the party is going in a Michigan sense and in a national sense. And I say that because we've seen recent polls that show progressive Abdul El-Sayed gaining some momentum here, while Haley Stevens is also trying to build a different coalition, one that Democrats have used to win in this state before. And so when you look at this primary, it's going to be the initial test case for what it could look like in the general election. And I think when I talk about El-Sayed's candidacy, this race is interesting both for him as a candidate, but then also for the moment within which it falls, because we have seen in the months prior to this voters in places like you might expect in New York, for example, with wins by Democratic Socialists, in Colorado as well, an incumbent lawmaker there losing her seat to a progressive challenger. All of those are part of the story that El-Sayed is writing the next chapter of. And so if he were to win here, it is a test case of proof positive for progressive candidates that they can win in maybe unexpected places. Because for El-Sayed, his coalition tonight is going to be really important when you think about what it could look like to win in this perennial battleground state come November. For someone like Mike Rogers, who's the Republican candidate, Republican strategist that I talked to, feel good about the fact that he didn't have to go through a bruising primary. He is able to just build his case ahead of November. And there have been leaked calls where Rogers himself might say that he thinks El-Sayed is the better candidate for him to run against. That's something that I and the piece we ran here yesterday showed that some voters are thinking about. And then on the other side of the coin, you have Democratic voters who say, you know what, this theory of the idea of electing establishment Democrats, of putting forward people who have served within the system hasn't worked before, and so they might be looking for someone new. I think at the end of the day, I am so interested and excited, frankly, for what voters are going to teach and tell us, because it will be a really important litmus test and mile marker for where the Democratic Party is going and where the energy truly is right now among those voters.
Let's go to our resident Michigan man. Spent some time in Ann Arbor, Eugene Robinson. Gene, what is your sense this morning and of this moment inside the Democratic Party, specifically in the state of Michigan, where you have two very different candidates? El-Sayed positioning himself as the anti-establishment. I'm not Chuck Schumer. I'm not all these people in Washington. I'm one of you. He has some views that many even Democrats view as extreme on Israel and others. What are you feeling right now about the state of the party and what may play out tonight?
Well, this is going to be fascinating. I mean, I think there are basically two things at work here. Number one, the Democratic establishment is not popular right now. And it's not popular among Democrats, to say nothing of the party at home. That doesn't mean Democrats won't do very well in the midterm elections, because Donald Trump is much more unpopular among Democrats and a lot of the country than perhaps even the Democratic establishment. But still, it's a bad time to be a Democrat with the support of the Democratic politicians who are seen by a lot of voters as yesterday's news, as over, as a lot of voters see it as time for something new. And I think El-Sayed is, at least according to the polls, maybe capitalizing on that. And then there's the old rule about how Democrats versus Republicans, that Democrats fall in love and Republicans fall in line, and I think a lot of El-Sayed is a really charismatic politician who's a great campaigner. He really electrifies audiences, and I think in some ways, perhaps a lot of primary voters in Michigan and the Democratic Party have fallen in love with this relatively new face, this charismatic guy, as opposed to falling in line behind arguably the safer choice for November, Haley Stevens, who was better known and, again, establishment linked. So we'll see how this comes out. I'm not sure it makes a lot of profound statements about the Democratic Party nationwide, simply because we see candidates like El Sayed, these insurgent younger candidates, some of them Democratic socialists, although he's not. We see them doing very well in some places and not in others, and perhaps that's as it should be. Maybe Democrats should run the candidates who are appropriate to that district and to that state, rather than trying to come out with some sort of national template for a candidate.
So, Jay Martin, let's get your thoughts on Michigan. Because to Eugene's point, that's right. I mean, we're seeing different kind of candidates win in different places. Much is made of the more moderate candidates the Democrats put forth for governor last year in New Jersey and Virginia. That was a success. This year, it's more of a mixed bag. In some places, they're going for the much more progressive liberal candidate. Others less so. But for whatever reason, it does seem, though, that this Michigan race is almost being viewed as a proxy war or a preview of the sort of fight for the Democratic Party ahead of 2028. Like, what is our party going to look like? Who's our nominee going to be for the presidency? And there seems to be almost an outsized importance being placed in what we see tonight.
John, I feel like we're going to be on this show in the 2060s, the two of us, and then we're going to be talking about the Bernie versus Hillary proxy war. And, we're going to be wearing dentures and we'll have really bad toupees on. And it's going to be the same fight, man. It hasn't changed. It's very similar here, similar forces, left of center versus left. And that's the fight you see playing out. Gene touched on this. The bottom line is that El Sayed is the superior candidate, run a superior campaign, and that shows. The deeper issue is that winning a primary is fine, but you got to win a general in a battleground state like Michigan. It's difficult when you're viewed as out of the mainstream, and that's going to be El Sayed's challenge. Can he come back to the center and win over voters in the political middle? And I got to say, this is on Michigan Democrats. If they don't win this election, they had two options here. Number one, Gary Peters, the incumbent senator, could have run for re-election. He's not 87 years old. He's pretty young by the median of the U.S. Senate. And secondly, the outgoing governor, two-term governor of the state, Gretchen Whitmer, also could have run and potentially cleared the field, or at least been a much more formidable candidate than anybody else in the race. Neither of those two things happened, so that's why Michigan Democrats are left where they are. Here's why it matters for the Senate math. If Democrats lose this state, they're already one in the hole. They're -1. That means they'd have to net 5 seats, guys, to get back the majority. And that's not even mentioning the question about John Fetterman and where he winds up after Election Day if you're looking at a 50-50 Senate. So it's a proxy war. It matters. But more immediately, it matters for the Senate math because Democrats can't afford to lose one and take back the Senate, I don't think.
That's a great point, Jay Mart. Already a steep climb for Democrats to take the Senate. They can't afford to lose one more. So, Allie, let's talk about issues that are resonating on the ground. Voters you've talked to there, obviously the economy, healthcare, those things always top of mind, the cost of living. But at the center of this campaign, we hear again and again, not just from candidates, but from voters about the issue of Israel. And these two candidates could not be further apart on that.
Yeah, this is actually a great example of a primary where you've got different messengers, but also some very key different messages. It's not just on things like healthcare, where El Sayed is for Medicare for all and Haley Stevens is for a more universal public health option. It does very much come down to Israel. And the reason that that's an important litmus test in Michigan is because this is one of the places where the uncommitted movement in 2024 began and frankly blossomed. This is also a place that never fully within that movement embraced Kamala Harris as as the Democratic nominee. And when you talk about a state that really votes on the margins, that is very important when you think about the coalition that did turn out in 2024. And so El Sayed is a continuation of that story. He is campaigning, yes, around the issue of leaning away from future aid to Israel. It's something that I pressed him on in my interview when I was with him here last week. But he's also leaning on it through the role of money. One of his central premises is getting money out of politics. And he's talking specifically about the more than $30 million that have flowed in from a pro-Israel group tied to AIPAC. That is, of course, backing Haley Stevens. On the other side, when I asked Haley Stevens if there's anything that would change her posture toward continued U.S. aid to Israel, she said she's running for a long term, 6 years if she gets this seat. Maybe things will happen going forward, but she's committed to a two-state solution. And so that is one clear marker for voters if they want to see the differences between these candidates. The other thing that I think of, and the reason that I do think of this as a bigger question and a bigger proxy for the Democratic Party, is because candidates for 2028 are always looking to two theories. Am I someone who's going to turn out the base, or am I someone who's going to turn out people who were on the sidelines and not feeling engaged? I think an El Sayed win here puts one in the column for turning out people who might not traditionally be part of the Democratic Party or coalition. For someone like Stevens, she is looking at people who are more typically turning out, specifically black voters. And in areas like here in Detroit, that is going to be essential when you talk about November and being able to make sure that whoever the nominee is can pull together all parts of that coalition, guys.
And we'll have answers on all of this just a few hours from now. MS Now senior Capitol Hill reporter, host of Way Too Early, Ali Vitale. Ali, thanks so much.